While opposing anti-Semitism has become a frequent rhetorical theme for the Biden administration, the White House appears to be publicly silent about confronting the Palestinian institutional anti-Semitism. Joining us now to talk more about all of this is the national president of the Zionist Organization of America, Mort Klein. Great to see you, Mort.
Good to be with you.
You know, I was reading about Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff in an article that promoted him as, it kind of make it sound like he's the highest ranking Jewish official in government, even though he is the second gentleman, not an elected official. And he's become kind of the de facto representative for Jewish Americans inside the Biden administration. But talk to us about this roundtable panel that he was chairing on your screen and what was really going on here from your perspective.
This was a total sham. First of all, President Biden refused to invite any organization that criticizes him on his anti-Israel appointments and his anti-Israel policies. We were excluded. Secondly, as you just mentioned, Douglas Emhoff is the spouse of an ineffective vice president, no responsibilities, no authority. And the co-leader of this meeting was one of the most hostile public officials to Israel, to the Jewish state we've ever had, Susan Rice, who supported funding UNRWA, which is a viciously anti-Semitic organization where Hamas teaches Arab kids to hate Jews and to commit violence against them. She supported the UNHRC, United Nations Human Rights Council. Almost every resolution they pass is an anti-Israel resolution. She supported 2334 in the UN, which says everything past the 67 line is Arab territory, meaning the Jewish section, the Temple Mount, the Western Wall. So when you have one of the most hostile people to Israel in the Jewish state, along with somebody who has no responsibility, no authority, it makes this whole thing a joke. By the way, 2 days after this meeting, President Biden nominated an overt Jew hater, Elizabeth Badgley, to be ambassador to Brazil. She's a woman who says it's Jewish money, who's corrupting Congress, making them do things they wouldn't ordinarily do. She said it is stupid to move the embassy to Jerusalem. 2 days after these meetings to try and do something about Jew hatred rising in a very serious way, he appoints another Jew hater.
I'm not specifically familiar with those comments, but I will check them out. And I know you are, of course, Mort. Also, you know, we do hear this rhetoric coming from Joe Biden. He obviously wants to make sure that Jewish Americans continue to vote Democrat as they have historically done so. But he tweeted out this, quote, saying, "The Holocaust happened. Hitler was a demonic figure. And instead of giving it a platform, our political leaders should be calling out and rejecting anti-Semitism wherever it hides. Silence is complicity," end quote. And of course, a lot of this cropped up from all the news that was being made about a certain musician having dinner with the former president. It must be somewhat absurd for a guy like yourself who just awarded President Trump for doing more for the nation of Israel and for the Jewish people here in this country, to hear Joe Biden try to call out Donald Trump, or any Republican really for that matter, who supported President Trump and his policies in a manner like this.
Well, Donald Trump was the greatest friend to the Jewish state ever in the White House. He made a mistake not criticizing these two Jew haters he had for dinner. I don't know why he didn't. He should have done that, but that does not change his record of extraordinary friendship to the Jewish people and to the Jewish state. You know, and Biden puts out this stuff about the Holocaust and Hitler. Well, that's easy. Everybody knows, of course, the Holocaust happened, any normal person, and everybody knows that Hitler was one of the monsters of history. But what is not mentioned is that Biden has profusely praised overt Jew haters in Congress. Rashida Tlaib, one of the great haters of Israel and the Jewish state, he said, "I admire Rashida Tlaib's passion, her intellect. God thanks her for being a fighter." He had Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, bring Ilhan Omar, another Jew hater in Congress, to the soccer games at the World Cup in Qatar, giving her great respect.
And you must take some relief, Mort, in the fact that Kevin McCarthy has made that a priority, kicking people like Ilhan Omar off and Rashida Tlaib for those type of comments, kicking them off those congressional committees, because Republicans did the same thing to Steve King when he said some bigoted stuff. I also wanted to ask you about this situation with Twitter, because a lot of people are praising Elon Musk for, you know, opening up Twitter, but I checked this morning, and the Ayatollah of Iran still has an official account up. You can even learn about his birthday if you want to. Elon Musk has explicitly stated that he was going to ban anti-Semitism on the platform. That's why he kicked Kanye back off. I guess Elon hasn't fixed all the problems at Twitter, because this guy still has a platform.
It is more than disappointing. It is shocking. Elon Musk has done a great job in making the site more democratic, ending real censorship on the site, which we've seen over the last few years. But Ayatollah is a man that publicly and repeatedly calls for the destruction of the United States of America and the destruction of Israel. This past year, he has killed 500 protesters, hanging them, shooting them. He's one of the monsters of the world. And it is Elon Musk says that he will end anyone who incites to violence. That's very important. But this guy, more than incites to violence, he perpetrates violence.
Yes.
He has got to be taken off of Twitter.
He perpetrates it. He actively calls for the destruction of Israel. It's unacceptable that he still exists on Twitter. Great to see you. Mort, thanks for being with us, president of the National the Zionist Organization of America, Mort Klein. Great to see you. Thanks so much.
ZOA.org. Thank you very much.
Great to see you.
No crooked establishment. None of that twisting the truth. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax.
Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think.
They let
me decide.
Newsmax.
real news
For real people.